Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Startup Sense podcast. This is your host, Jonah Lupton. Thanks for joining us today. Of course, we're going to bring you another great episode in just a minute. Just want to do a little intro here for our guest. So today's guest is Chris Aubuchon. He is the co-founder of a company called Filled. The website is FILLD.com. That'll be in the show notes, of course. They've raised about $6 million. They are based in Mountain View, California, which is Silicon Valley. The company has recently expanded to a couple new locations, including Seattle and Vancouver. And then right now they're doing some pilots in Portland and Phoenix. So those could be some new markets coming on soon. They are I don't want to call them on demand because they're not on demand. They are essentially a gas delivery service for your car. So you would schedule this in advance. You can schedule it, a couple days in advance, couple weeks in advance, whatever you want. They deliver 7 days a week to your home or office. We'll talk about that business model in a second, how they make money, and a whole bunch of good things. So let's welcome Chris to the show. Chris, how are you, man?
I'm doing fine, man. Thank you very much for having me.
You're very welcome. Thanks for joining us today. So in full disclosure, a few years back, I kind of thought of this idea and I'm thinking, oh my God, how come this doesn't exist yet? And then I remember seeing, I think it was probably Crunchbase, where you guys raised some money a few years back. And you guys were obviously doing this. So talk to us about this business model. What is Filled?
Before we actually started the company, Scott and I were in the investment side of the world. We got to see a lot of crazy ideas come through that we really thought were interesting. Some weren't, but this idea actually came by way of my co-founder's wife. She mentioned it, and we both were very dismissive because, first of all, it's gasoline moving in a truck, and second, gas stations just don't make a lot of money. But it really was kind of like an earworm for me. I'm very much into trying to create efficiencies where they're not. And we started digging in. Scott looked at the regs and the regulations around moving and selling and transporting fuel and transferring fuel from vehicle to vehicle. And I looked at the economics of the routing of trucks and the orders in neighborhoods or in office buildings or even just fleet delivery for large businesses. And when you start to see that as the order density gets higher, this becomes a very incredibly interesting economic model as well as efficiency model that brings a little bit of a greener story to the already, marred view of fuel consumption. But the less we can consume, the better for our planet. And this actually painted that story as well. So in the early days, just to be clear, we thought it was crazy, but we ended up doing our diligence and finding that this is really, really interesting. And to your point, I'll tell you, of all the different venture firms we've talked to, I'd say over half of them talked about someone in the office having this idea as well. And almost every time, I'll tell you, it was regulatory wise, we couldn't get over the wall, And then the other one was like, economically, this wasn't going to work, which means that we were looking at the right place at the beginning, that we thought those were the bad, those were the bad barriers that were going to keep this business from starting. But I think there's a certain point where there's the aha moment in the understanding of a new business model. And once we got there, there was no stopping us. And honestly, as you in the intro shared, we're growing tremendously. We're throughout the Silicon Valley. We are doing business partnerships, expansion nationwide throughout this year, and launching the consumer on the heels of that. So it's been a real fun journey this far, but it is a tough business.
I think we all understand the problem. Every town or city has gas stations. I lived in Boston, though, and there was no gas station inside the city limits. So you basically had to leave downtown area to find gas. Right now I live in a small beach town. There's a couple gas stations, but they close very early at night. So if you do a lot of traveling or commuting and you come home late, they may not even be open, or you may not feel like stopping for gas early in the morning, and weather and kids and all kinds of other things. So this makes sense on a million different levels. But in the very beginning, what did you guys do first? Obviously, you did the research. You talked to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But in terms of starting the company, you have the trucks and all the logistics.
The first thing we did is that we knew we wanted to do this as an app-based service.
Okay.
So, we very much looked at this as being Amazon bookstore analogy to us and a gas station. We were wanting to virtualize effectively the experience of fuel. And that's kind of how we got started. So the first thing we did is we spent a lot of time to build the app, design and build the first app, the graphics, how would the user experience be? And really, there was so much we didn't know then. It was really get that MVP out there, that minimum viable product out there.
And
And
let me
then
just
we
stop you
had
for
to,
a
of
second.
course,
Did you guys start on iOS, or did you iOS and Android together?
it was iOS with Android on the heels by about, I think, about a month, maybe
Okay.
two. We did actually, people in the industry we recognized was Cordova, which is effectively an HTML JavaScript platform that is portable to both the iOS and Android. We're no longer doing that. That was in the early days to try to make it easy to go cross-platform. But we focused on one first because the developer we had was better at iOS than Android. He knew Android well enough, but we had him focus on iOS, get something in some customers' hands. Here in the Silicon Valley, there's a vast majority of iOS users because Apple is right down the street. So it was the right approach. So we got the app designed and developed, and then we built the first truck in my driveway. And to be clear, there were a handful of people looking at competing with us even when we weren't even live yet. The buzz had gotten out that we were doing this, and we had people come to my driveway, take photos of the truck that we were developing at the time. So, I mean, this is Silicon Valley is very competitive, and that was something that, we recognized pretty early on that, hey, you just have to do it right, and hopefully what you build is faster and better than what someone can come and copy.
Now you guys you've raised a couple seed rounds. When did you raise that first round?
Yeah, the first round was September of 2015. So we had been at it for about 5 months of fueling. So we
Okay.
had been around as a company for about 9 months. Our first day of fueling was April 27th, 2015, and our round was raised in late September of 2015. That was $3 million, led by Lightspeed, a very prominent firm in the area. Javelin was the second big investor, and then we had a handful of angels that came in on a convertible note. And then fast forward about a year, actually, from that, and we had grown by over 100x, which is easy when you're small. We had grown, tremendously, and we had built a lot of value in the company, and we were debating whether a large A was the right place, or were there a couple other milestones we wanted to get with a little bit smaller amount of money. And those milestones were the launches of the cities that you just talked about. We wanted to launch those cities successfully, get them effectively what's called gross margin positive, show that we can expand nimbly and inexpensively and bring in money that's accretive to the bottom line right away. And we proved that with effectively what is kind of a second seed round. It allowed us to have less dilution. And here we're in our runway. We're looking forward right now as to, do we go for an A right now? Do we try to raise just a little bit more to where we get that nationwide expansion? I mean, this is the debate of every startup is
for sure.
Big money so that you have security, or small money so you can hit each and every milestone and build your valuation. So we're right in the midst of that. I guess that decision. I like having our feet to the fire with the money, because it makes us be very careful and grow very strategically.
Because as soon as you start to raise capital and you start to prove out this business model and gain some traction, you're gonna see some competitors. So that's where raising
Absolutely
more money faster so you can get ahead of them makes some sense, as I'm sure you're debating.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. You've hit the nail on the head. What we love about the business, though, is fundamentally, I think one of the things that's a very interesting concept here is you had the idea. So you recognize there's something just really cruddy about a gas station experience.
Yep.
It's not just the gas station experience, but for you, it's far away. I think your scenario said you have to go outside the city limits, or they're closed in the middle of the night. All these things for our customers, I'll tell you, it's dirty nozzles they don't want to touch. They don't like being accosted at the gas station. They don't like fumes. They don't like their kids sitting in the car while they wait. They don't like the weather.
And there's some gas stations are technically or sometimes in some very sketchy areas.
Oh, yes. Actually, by definition, actually, this is a very interesting statistic that the government has. By definition, a gas station creates the sketchy situation. So, I mean, I think to your point, you can put it in the middle of the nicest area of town, but for some reason, there's a little bit more riffraff element that shows up at a gas station than at your Tiffany and Company or something like that, right?
Now, just going backwards for a second, before you guys raised that first seed round, were you guys bootstrapped to that point, or was it friends and family?
Yeah, it was actually, I put in the first, I guess, chunk of cash. And then through talking to some of my colleagues who have, some dispensable cash, they became our first angel investors. So to be clear, by the time we raised the 3 million, we probably had spent, I'll use the word spent as opposed to raised. We probably spent about 165 or something like that.
Okay.
So it was very bootstrapped. It was very tight budget on everything we did to prove out the business before we raised $3 million.
Where do you guys think you spent that first chunk of cash? I mean, was it on trucks? Was it on payroll, legal expenses? I mean, I'm sure it was a little bit of all of the above, but
the app was the first real check that had to be written. Then it was the equipment for building the truck. That was the next real big expense. The truck was my former truck donated to the company. So there was, once again, trying to stay cheap, right? The first truck was.
You don't have to buy a special truck. You can have a.
No, let me paint a picture for everybody of what our truck looks like. You guys, we're all familiar with an F-150 or an F-250 or the GM, a GM 1500 or Chevy Silverado pickup. Think of that regular cab. That means there's no extended cab. It does have a long bed, and it has in the bed of it somewhere between 2 and 4 tanks that are about 100 gallons. And in there we have pumps and meters and reel hoses and spill equipment and fire extinguishers and eye wash stations and grounding reels. We have on this truck. It's effectively a very mini gas station, and actually, if you guys were to see it, it's incredible. The handle looks just like the gas nozzle you're used to. We all are used to this thing. We've pumped our own gas for years, and our whole goal here is to liberate our mission. Our number one mission, everyone in the company knows this, to liberate drivers from refueling. That's the mission. Liberate the drivers from refueling. And that means that we don't want anybody to have to schlep themselves to a gas station to do the labor of pumping that out of the ground that actually got there by a big truck that spent a lot of gas to get it there. And by the way, most people who are untrained at pumping gas spill on the ground. So for every 14,000 gallons pumped, there's a gallon spilled. That's ecologically unfriendly. We haven't spilled. We've spilled less than 4 gallons in 1 million gallons that we've pumped. So it's really a small. We are making the story greener and taking that task away from the customer. And I love the experience that our customers tell us. It's like, it's the gas ferry. They came overnight. It's like Santa, right? I mean, we hear so many funny things.
Well, that's certainly what Silicon Valley is known for, is creating these companies and apps and services that save us time and money and aggravation. And, we can push a button or schedule something, and it just a task that we normally hate gets done for us. So with that said, how do you guys make money on this? Because I could think of a few different ways, but I'll let you tell us.
So the story for a gas station out there is that, the vast majority of them, like 2/3 of them, are individual owner stations. So they have the volume of one gas station, and the buying volume that they have and the pricing is based on the volume of the one station. Second, they have value in the land. And this is why many of the stations that you were talking about in Boston are outside of the city now. The land value is far greater than what that gas station is going to get in LTV, or a long-term value, from being a gas station. Now they'll tear out the gas station and put it in an apartment building or put it in a high-rise or something. So you have these competing factors to where the economics of a gas station are really, really troubled. And for us, we can pump the same gallons that a gas station does with about 3 trucks. So if you do the economics of a gas station, maybe it costs $1 million for the land. Here, it's like 3. Boston, probably a good 2 to 3 as well, $2 to $3 million. Here, for $150,000 or maybe 180, all in, I can have 3 trucks that can do all the same volume in that gas station. That is a capital efficient model. Second, as I get larger and larger, and I mean, as Filled becomes a dominant supplier of fuel in an area, we become the volume of multiple gas stations. So we get to buy at a better margin at wholesale, and we want to pass that on to the customer eventually. You know, as we grow, we have a long way to go to get there. But the long-term goal here is that you don't have to get your own gas, and it could be Costco pricing. And that would be, I think that's a story that everybody can get behind. So the way we make money today is that we buy wholesale, we have a fee associated, and in the long run, it is possible, based on the economic modeling I've done, it is possible that the fee goes away as we are able to get a higher and higher buy side discounts. But I mean, that, like I said, there's a long way between here and there. So today it's subsidized by a delivery fee. We charge when a person opens our app. The experience is like this: they've already registered. So if they've already registered, they've already got their car in there, their credit card, and we know their location because they're telling us this is where my car is going to be. They select a time window. The longer windows allow us routing flexibility. They're much cheaper on the delivery fee. The short windows that are quicker cost more. So there is this, you get to choose whether you want it quicker, when you want it. It's going to cost you more, and or lets us have the liberty throughout the evening. For instance, 2/3 of our customers order at night, so we fill the majority of our customers while they're sleeping.
Okay, I was going to
go
ask.
to their car.
Are you guys kind of 24
secretly,
hours?
Right. Yeah, we are day and night. We have a shift transition where we don't really do any filling, but we consider ourselves 24/7.
And do you guys
let's
yeah, keep going.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was going to keep going with the experience. So a person opens up the app. They say, my, I don't know, Honda, Odyssey is in at this address. This is the time window I'd like, 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. And I'll select the fee for $3. We give them the option to add like an octane booster or a fuel injector cleaner as an add-on. That costs another $3 to $5, $8, depending if they choose it or not. If they don't, well, then we're just going to bring them gas for the $3 fee for the 8 to 4 shift. And they go to bed knowing that we're going to fill them in the middle of the night. We ask that they crack the gas flap if they have a locking one. A Honda Odyssey does. Most of your General Motors and Fords do not. But this experience for them is really just go to bed, wake up. If they have an early morning meeting, they don't have to figure out how to get to the gas station on their way and maybe be late. So the experience is pretty straightforward. They get text notifications when our driver dispatches to them, and they get a text notification when it's been delivered, and then they get their receipt via email, much like DoorDash, Uber, Amazon, Google Shopping, any of those. We're very much the same, I guess, economic model. We collect all our money the night that we've filled you.
So for my car, for instance, you have to, there's a button on the inside of the car that I have to press in order to open up the, whatever you call it, I don't know.
Gas flap,
the gas flap, so you can obviously take off the knob. What would happen if I scheduled, delivery and I forgot to do that, and you guys show up in my driveway and you can't get the gas in there?
Yeah, it does happen to us. It's very rare because we try to teach our customers that you're not going to get the service if you're not prepared to receive the service.
Right.
Within the app, when you order, the very first page that comes up after the order is confirmed is a reminder. Hey, remember to open your gas flap for this delivery at this time. And furthermore, when we dispatch, we remind them. So here we're on our way. We've got somewhere between it could be as little as a 1 minute or as long as maybe 15 minutes before we're going to be there. And we basically say, hey, just FYI, we're on our way. Please make sure your gas flap is open. And if we get there and it's locked, we basically text them. We give you, just a few minutes to get out there and open it. And if not, we go on our merry way. You didn't get the service. We didn't get paid, but you didn't get the service either. So we're kind of both unhappy.
Yeah, of course. Right.
So
and I'm sure it probably happens once to some people, and then they don't make the mistake again.
Yeah, and there are some people who it happens incessantly. It happens to them a lot. And one of the things that we're encouraging with them, hey, we're going to give you some grace, but then after a while, the minute we dispatch, you're going to get charged the fee if we fill or not. So we really want to be friendly, but there's a certain point where we can't have the economics constantly hitting us for not learning. So that's one difficult aspect of the business. You don't want to be that, but we also can't keep going to everybody if they keep having problems.
So let's talk about the most important part of running a business like this, which is finding the customers. So how do you guys find your customers? What's been your growth strategy?
Yeah, so when we first got started, I told you, we launched in April 2015. The first, we seeded, me and the co-founders, seeded with, a list of about 110. I think it was really like 80, but our friends told some friends. So we had about 110 first, users. And that's how we started.
Friends and family, or was that like people that signed up ahead of time?
It was all people that we knew through my career living here in the Bay Area, people that I went to school with for graduate school that live here, just people you get to know after being in a community for so long. Churches, community centers, your gymnasium, like there's just a lot of different things that you can reach out to the people that you run into regularly. And that's what we all did. And then secondarily, within the app, we designed this from the very beginning. If you share with someone, you get the benefit of, in the early days, it was a free delivery fee. Now it's effectively, you give $15 to the new customer and you get $5 yourself. Okay. So that means for every 20 people you referred, you just got $100 off. That's 2 fill-ups. So for every 10 people you refer, you get a free fill-up roughly, or maybe a free fill-up and a half. So that has been what has planted very good seeds of growth. On top of that, we use, traditional marketing channels. We tried radio a little bit. We've tried Google, AdWords. We've done Facebook. Facebook is pretty much, at least in the Valley, it is the go-to for marketing growth. You can be very, very targeted with who sees your ads, and you can learn what works, and you can learn what frames and defines your customer the best. So I would say that Facebook is the best technique for growth, but there's this halo effect that's gained through whether it's flyers or reaching out to community groups. We were asked to be part of this San Jose Touch a Truck event. They roll in fire trucks and grader machines and buses and backhoes and all kinds of stuff they put on this big field, and they let all the community with the kids come and play and see. And it was incredible to us. We just rolled in there for 4 hours, but the amount of word of mouth that people went, I didn't even know there was a gas delivery service. And they all poke around the truck. The kids hopped in and rang the horn and tried to flip on the lights and all that kind of stuff. But those type of events really, as small as they are, family, I'm learning that family, and I have a family of 4 kids, and my wife and I, families talk. And this is a service that keeps you away from the gas station, which the gas station takes you away from your family. So in a way, our service gives people back the time to do what they want, whether it's gaming or sleeping, some people, or spending time with their family. But our service really liberates them from that, that refueling, like I said.
Did you guys say you deliver to more homes or offices?
We so our split it actually, that is internally almost like the tortoise and hare discussion, because it's the steady growth is always coming from the consumer business, our direct-to-consumer business. That's the steady growth. But there's these office parks and business relationships that kind of just land out of nowhere, and boom, you bring in 1,000 more fills in a month or something, right? So you really do. It is very much the tortoise and hare, and as we know, the hare is technically faster, but the tortoise was very diligent in keeping his path. And I feel like B2B is the fastest and quickest growth method, but it's patchy because your business development guy has to go and spend a lot of time to land the deal. But then when the deal happens, it's a big spike, right?
But I can see the complication with offices. A residence, I can give you my exact address. If I park my car in an office park, my car could be anywhere in that parking lot, and then your driver has to try to find my car.
That's right. And by the way, that's some of our most efficient filling happens in office parks because everyone puts their pins right where they're supposed to, and we just go boom, 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 and fill them. And some of our very worst efficiency is actually in the same office park because the pin is not where you think it is. While oftentimes people know their house address and don't get it wrong.
Exactly.
So I think you hit it right on the head.
What's been the biggest challenge for you guys thus far over the past couple of years?
It's being bombarded with multiple challenges. Maybe the biggest challenge is being bombarded with multiple challenges.
Right.
Really, there are certain challenges that are sometimes seen as harder and sometimes seen as better for the business, even though they are harder. And I like the challenges that, while they're harder, they make the biggest change, like forcing us to be very, very efficient at every fill up. Our driver training, every driver is a W-2 employee. These are people who are dedicated to our business. They're not
so they're
Uber drivers that can sign up and they're all on payroll. Okay. They all have an equity stake in the company. They believe in what we're doing. They know that every second matters when they're filling up. Their customer interface matters for the business as a whole, as well as them personally. And that, I think, is a big deal. On top of that, our drivers are hazmat endorsed commercial drivers that are trained in live fire suppression. We light fires for them and we make them put them out. We puncture tanks and make them plug them. The name of this business, while it is a pennies business, it really is safety. People, if you're going to be driving up to someone's driveway in front of their house with fuel, it needs to be a soft with a very highly trained person. And that is something that we now have statistics that show mobile fueling to have less fires per fill up, so to speak, than gas stations, and less spilled fuel per gallon pumped from the gas stations. So there's a green story and a safety story that's here. And this is all in the driver training. Our value, our number one value in the company is that the customer is first always. But that means internally, our drivers have to be first because they're the front line to the customer.
What would happen if one of your drivers got into an accident?
So it has happened already. We've had other people, never at the fault of our drivers. We've actually had 3 accidents over the last 2 years. And this is what happens when you're driving, hundreds of thousands of miles. It's going to happen. We've had people clip our trucks, never a drop of fuel spilled, and no major injuries, even though the damage was pretty severe. But being a trained driver on how to handle a situation when you have something like fuel is one of the most important things we have. So are you asking specifically what do they do in an accident situation?
I'm just curious. I don't know if these tanks were combustible. Meaning if someone rear ends one of your trucks, is it going to explode? But it doesn't.
They're in the bed, so someone would have to hit really, really, really hard. And if that's the case, you would have had a problem no matter what vehicle they were probably hitting.
Right.
In our case, though, because it's a commercial driver with a hazmat endorsement and a placarded vehicle, we have a folder in the front that every driver knows of emergency response. They're also trained in it, so they don't have to necessarily go through to the folder. But if there is an accident, it basically is there. First, you care about life, right? It's life, environment, and then property. So you want to always protect a person and their safety. Then second, how do you protect the environment? And then third, how do you protect, value of a car or a building or whatever? But the most important thing is that order.
I mentioned in the intro that you guys have expanded into Seattle and Vancouver, and then also looking at Portland and Phoenix. I know both of those expansions, though, into Seattle and Vancouver have been recent. So I guess maybe you could tell us, how are they going so far, and then how did you settle on those two locations, and how do you settle on future locations?
Yeah, so that just to be clear, we are a both a business and consumer facing supplier, right? We do delivery for business and consumer. So what we have launched in Seattle and Vancouver, Canada, is a business partnership first. We're getting the feet under us, because those are just in the last month and a half. That partnership, we've established trucks on the ground and drivers and fueling and all of our routing and everything. And once that is operating at a level that we think is ready for prime time, we'll turn on the consumer. So consumer is not actually available in Seattle or Vancouver today.
Okay.
But it is on the roadmap, and it's not in the distant future. It is near to us. So that's the way we expand, is that we land a partnership in an area that can support the truck and drivers and the tech and everything that it takes to actually launch a business there. And then on top of that foundation, if you will, we launch the consumer platform.
Gotcha. Okay. So commercial first, consumer second.
That's correct.
Gotcha. And
now, if one of the things we thought, and this is just kind of harebrained early, and it's not impossible, but we thought that maybe we force a petition for a city, and once a city gets to, I don't know, 1,000 new users that are willing to sign up, then we'll launch there. That was something we thought about, and that's still very viable. But the beauty here is that contractually, when you've got a commercial account, you walk in and it's guaranteed,
right,
because we've signed for it all. While consumer, they could commit and maybe not be there. Who knows?
Do you think 1,000 consumers is kind of your break even for a new location?
It really depends on the area, traffic patterns. This is something that we spend a lot of time analyzing. I would say 1,000 is a good start. That is a good place for us to. I would pretty much, in any major metropolitan area, if I had 1,000 that were not too far spread out, I would be willing to sign up for that. But if you told me there are 1,000 in, right?
Yeah, like six markets that you guys want to go into and run a competition to see which city can get to 1,000 first.
Right. No, exactly. Or maybe if it's a competition, you raise the bar even higher.
Oh yeah, exactly. If it's competition, do like $3,000. I mean,
right. Exactly.
New York, Boston, Dallas, Chicago. I mean, those are all ideal markets, I would think.
Yep.
I mean, what factors do you think will determine which markets you expand into on the consumer side? Is it just population density? Is it
population density matters, but cost of the general cost of fuel in the area, margin on the fuel in the area matters. The cost of living, therefore, the cost of keeping drivers employed. We strive to make our drivers very happy employees, and that means we want to make sure we can afford to pay them what's necessary to live in the area happily. On top of that, really, like for instance, you look at some cities, lots of one-ways are either bad or good, depending on that particular city's layout design. And I think you look at LA, and it's so sprawl that even though there's so much fuel being consumed there, it's really, really, really spread out.
And the traffic is horrible.
Right, exactly. So I think actually this is part of my job as I'm the CTO and head of ops as well, is to look at every expansion and look at traffic patterns, look at uh, you know, is there a lot of there's a lot of construction. You know, from being from Boston, the Big Dig really killed a lot of traffic in the whole area for the longest time.
Yeah.
And could you imagine if I signed up for that and then suddenly they broke ground? Like I sign up for it, I'm there, and then they break ground. That would totally hurt my business. So
Yeah.
we have to look at all of those things. And I think you're hitting the nail on the head. You have to look at density, fuel consumption, routing efficiency. Where do you get to supply? Exactly where are the gas stations, and how set up is the supply chain as well?
Are you guys hitting up apartment complexes?
We fill in apartment complexes as well. Yeah, hitting them up. No, we don't actively go to them and sell.
Oh, you don't?
We have our standard, Facebook targeting. We pick up one or two in an apartment complex, and then they just share with everyone in the complex, and that's great.
Right. Right. Yeah. That referral program you guys have seems very generous. I remember
Yeah.
the early days of Uber. I'm not sure what Uber's doing right now, but in the early days it was, oh God, I mean, was it 15 or $20 referral fee for everyone that signed up at Uber and took their first ride? I think I ended up with like $600 or $700 worth of credits on Uber. It was crazy.
Wow,
Um,
that's great. Yeah, we, we've
that was
we've
4 or 5 years
got
ago.
we've got a couple of users. I can't remember the number. I know that one person has like 200 referrals. So
Jesus.
you do that. I mean, that's a grand right there. They got a grand of fuel, which is effectively, almost a year for some people.
If you ever come to Boston, let me know. I could certainly help you hit the ground running fast.
Oh, excellent. I love it.
What else? What else do you want to share with us before we wrap things up?
Yeah, I think the only thing I one thing I hear the most of is the danger of fuel, and I want I like that customers, some of the most stringent customers of us, come out, look at our driver, look at the truck, talk to us, and they recognize that we have all kinds of safety equipment on board. And Hollywood has made gas look far worse than it really is. One bullet from 100 yards and a car blows up, right? I mean, that's the way it is in Hollywood. But it is definitely tainted the view of a gas truck. And it's only the people that have seen us and understand what we've got that really go, wow, this is so different than what I imagined. I mean, I think people also think we're a big tanker, like a big truck rolling down the street, and we're not. Once again, just an F-150, F-250 rolling, between 200 and 400 gallons, and actually halfway through the shift, it's already down to half that. So it's got less than full most of the time.
So, end on this question, I guess. If you could go back to 2014 before you started the company, what advice would you give yourself?
Be tighter on the belt all the time. What we did in the very beginning, we were very good at we weren't paying ourselves for one. So therefore, when every dollar comes out of your own pocket, we kept the belt really, really tight. I think keeping the belt really, really tight all the way through probably like a B or even getting close to a C round is really important. The hard part is that you want to make employees happy and you want to pay market rates. So I think that tug of war is the real one. Maybe you spend your money on people and then chintz on everything else and do it efficiently. And when I say chintz, I don't mean do it poorly. Just do it efficiently. That's probably the most important thing I can look back and say.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate your time today. I know you're a busy
Hey,
guy.
thanks for your podcast and all the great episodes I'm looking forward to listening to.
Awesome. Yeah, you're actually. I just did my 200th episode yesterday, so you're 201.
Excellent.
Been a fun ride and a nice learning experience. So, and I mean, I think that's what this is all about. Is just talking to entrepreneurs that are on their journey and they can share some advice with us and insights. It's hard, building a company is extremely hard, but you guys are doing a great job, and I look forward to you guys coming to the East Coast at some point.
Excellent. Well, I'll give you a heads up in advance.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate your time
All
today.
right.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.